And here we get to another episode I've been eagerly waiting to discuss. Yet another Moffat episode that doesn't half make an impression, for the second series running now, I must add. Probably the best part of this episode is the plot, which is simple, yet elegant, and impressively original. I love the idea that these repair bots are so logical that they assume that since their ship is named the SS Madame de Pompadour, they must therefore use the brain of Madame de Pompadour, and because their ship is 32 years old, they need her 32-year-old brain. It's absolutely ludicrous, but it makes perfect sense in their warped little machine minds, so that's exactly what they're going to get, and it's beautifully foreshadowed throughout, such as their nonsensical at the time line to Madame de Pompadour, "We are the same." Now, I'm not sure how exactly they were able to disguise themselves in French finery without the assistance of the crew, but that's not a big point. I also love the fact that this story is simultaneously in the 51st century and the 18th. There's never been anything quite like it in the history of Doctor Who before, and although the idea of these time windows feels familiar somehow, it's still really fun to watch them being used to good narrative effect here. Then we have the clockwork androids, which are hands down some of the creepiest monsters ever in Doctor Who. I was terrified of them from a first glimpse I got, and it seriously creeped me out in that scene when the Doctor first discovers the broken clock, and then the clockwork man lurking under younger Renette's bed. There's something about those big...
Okay, that's scary.
You're scared of a broken clock?
Just a bit scared, yeah. Just a little tiny bit. Because you see, if this clock's broken, and it's the only clock in the room, then what's that? Because you see, that's not a clock. You can tell by the resonance. Too big. 6 feet, I'd say. Size of a man.
What is it?
Now, let's think. If you were a thing that ticked and you were hiding in someone's bedroom, first thing you do, break the clock. No one notices the sound of one clock ticking, but two, you might start to wonder if you're really alone. Stay on the bed, right in the middle. Don't put your hands or feet over the edge.
About those big black eyes and the evil sneer that they wear on their incredibly detailed masks, not to mention the creepy clockwork sound they make, a la Justin Rich's 9th Doctor novel The Clockwise Man, albeit much better, and the mechanical way they move their head, in particular the way they tilt their heads. Freaky. And as if that wasn't bad enough by itself, guess what they want to do to you? Oh, they want to vivisect you with their blade attachment and pull out all your organs to repair their ship. Good heavens, that's just freaky. I actually would love to see the clockwork androids come back, even though I know there's no chance of it. But man, they're good monsters. The girl in the fireplace maintains the customary coyness about the Doctor's true feelings. He appears suitably shocked when the adult Renette goes in for an extended kiss. His body language suggests that this is not an activity he particularly is comfortable with. When he does learn the historical identity of his kissing companion, he indulges in a downright encyclopedic recitation of her greatest accomplishments before smugly declaring, "I'm the Doctor and I just snogged Madame de Pompadour." There's an odd undercurrent in this episode that the Doctor is attracted not so much to the person, but to the personage, as though he's impressively interested in Renette because she's so damn impressive. The Doctor may not be attracted to Madame de Pompadour in a physical or perhaps even an emotional sense, but it seemed well within the Time Lord's remit to find historical significance rather sexy. In that sense, this is the Doctor's long-standing penchant for name-dropping expanded in an episode-length story. His dismissal of Louis XIV with the announcement that he is the Lord of Time suggests a certain preoccupation with high status. We may not be talking exactly about high social political status, but the Doctor does fit in all too easily in Versailles. His anachronistic invention of the banana daiquiri is proof enough of that.
I begged for more. I could have spread my wings and done a have you met the French? My God, they know how to party.
Oh, look at what the cat dragged in, the oncoming storm.
You sound just like your mother.
What have you been doing? Where have you been?
Well, among other things, I think I just invented the banana daiquiri a couple of centuries early. Do you know, they'd never even seen a banana before. Always take a banana to a party, Rose. Bananas are good. Oh, brilliant. It's you. You're my favourite. You are the best. You know why? Because you're so thick. You're Mr. Thickety, thick face from Thick Town, Thickania. And so's your dad.
The Doctor is an alien after all, and the relationship he forges with Madame de Pompadour, in which he drops in for minutes at a time, at all the key points of her life, is totally outside the basic parameters of the human experience. With the exception of a pair of unseen cutaways, most notably the Doctor's drunken good times at the party, this story unfolds nearly in real time, with the Doctor's perspective, so the time he spends with her likely only totals a few hours at most. As Renette observes, she has known the Doctor since childhood, yet he is still an interloper, someone who, with the possible exception of his off-screen drunken revelry at the party, never sticks around long enough to forge a human connection. The pair share their most private moment when the Doctor is forced to enter Renette's mind as he dusts off the latent telepathic abilities that he has technically always had but barely ever uses. Indeed, as the Doctor even admits here, he consciously doesn't make a habit of incomprehensibly intimate encounters, perhaps that not because he fears invading others' privacy, but because he fears revealing his own innermost secrets, which is precisely what happens here, and actually really works well to further the plot excellently. In that fleeting little moment when Renette experiences the memory of the Doctor's lonely childhood, she comes to know him better than anyone, Rose included. After all, Rose has gotten to know the Doctor in the way that any human would get to know any other human. She has spent time with him, sharing experiences both good and bad. He has learnt from her, and she has learnt from him, but the unspoken agreement that Rose has with the Doctor, both of them, is that there are certain topics that will never be discussed. The Doctor's life is so vast that he could never tell a human all about it, even if he wanted to, and the Doctor clearly doesn't want to. It's not just that he won't go into detail about the Time War, or that he never bothers to mention regeneration until 30 seconds before he's about to go through it. Regardless of whether he is the terse, plain-spoken man in the leather jacket or the lovable, babbling goofball in the cool suit, the Doctor is not prepared to discuss his more human emotions, and he won't even confirm that such feelings exist in the first place. On the rare occasion that Rose forces him into it, as in the Doctor dances or school reunion, the Doctor leaves key sentences unfinished, often because he has found a new crisis to divert his attention. He's had several centuries worth of practice in deflecting unwanted topics of conversation, so he's not about to start not doing it now. The Doctor can't do that with Renette because he never really talks to her at all. Their bond is shaped by their telepathic encounter, yes, but it's also defined by the Doctor's needs rather than his words. Every single time Renette needs him, he appears. She thinks of him as a lonely angel, which is a good analogy of others I've heard, but Madame de Pompadour proves her true potential when she attempts to grasp the Doctor's true nature. She betrays a certain imperiousness when she snaps at Rose, but it's understandable. Renette is smart enough to realise that Rose has mistaken her limited 18th century worldview for a lack of intellect. Renette leans upon some poetic metaphors to articulate the Doctor's time-travelling existence, but the accuracy of her descriptions is undeniable. Her talk of the slow path to describe a normal human life takes on its greatest power when she wanders onto the starship, only to be greeted by the sounds of her future self and all of Versailles screaming 5 years hence. In that moment she realises the Doctor's path is no place for her, and implicitly no place for humans in general. What that says about Rose, and even Mickey, is a topic best left for another day. Even then she still gladly accepts the Doctor's later offer to come travelling with him. After all, the Doctor is worth the monsters, and so are the stars. Now, is The Girl in the Fireplace a love story? Well, this story is clearer about its intentions in School Reunion but it's still necessary to grapple with some hidden meanings. The Doctor and Renette's telepathic union could be understood as a stand-in for the kind of interpersonal intimacy the couples forge over the course of months, or even years together. The question then is just how much a metaphor could be understood. Is it the Doctor makes such psychic contact instead of its more mundane but no less meaningful human equivalent? In other words, are we witnessing the Doctor's fundamental alien take on what could be understood as love? In that reading, Renette and Rose might see romance in the Doctor's actions, but that's an imperfect human approximation of what the Doctor actually experiences, which is something we can't hope or even begin to comprehend. The other possibility is that everything that happens in The Girl in the Fireplace is proof that the Doctor is capable of love, perhaps even romantic love. He just needed the extraordinary of circumstances to demonstrate that capability over the course of a single episode, but they could theoretically profess such intense feelings in more familiar human terms. In terms of Rose, the former interpretation suggests the Doctor cannot love her as she appears to love him, whereas the latter interpretation indicates that at least the possibility that reciprocated love might exist between the pair. I suspect it's not difficult at this point to guess which of the two interpretations I subscribe to, but it doesn't really matter in assessing the merits of the episode itself. The Girl in the Fireplace is a fantastic episode of Doctor Who, and it's a definite contender for the best single episode standalone of David Tennant's tenure. Stephen Moffat brings back the same knack of one-liners that he brought to The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances last season, and his endlessly quotable script proves a perfect match for Tennant's Doctor. After some uncertain moments in his first 4 episodes, Tennant really clicks in this episode as a Doctor here, showing off his remarkable range while revealing some of the clearest insights into just who the 10th Doctor is underneath all that crazed energy. The Girl in the Fireplace stands proudly alongside some of the great genre-breaking experiments of the new series thus far, a list that includes Father's Day, Boomtown, and most significantly School Reunion. This one rivals and perhaps surpasses Father's Day because for all Moffat's experimentation and deconstruction of the Doctor's much overstated asexuality, this episode works as just 45 minutes of stylish, rollicking fun. This is new Doctor Who at its most madly confident. The individual viewer is left to decide exactly what the episode has to say, but the way the story makes its points, whatever they might precisely be, is nothing short of marvellous. Also, how terrific is Sophia Myles as Madame de Pompadour? She never portrays Renette's 18th century origins, yet she plays the character with such passion that she transcends the character's potentially stuffy historical origins. It's instantly plausible that the Doctor would be intrigued by the woman that Myles creates. Also, Ben Turner does some nice work as Louis XIV. The way he plays the final scene with the Doctor provides some much needed emotional context to the Time Lord's typically unreadable reactions to Madame de Pompadour's death. Also, a specific line from this episode I always love is, "What's pre-revolutionary France doing on a spaceship? Get a little perspective," from the Doctor in response to Mickey's retort about the horse and the spaceship. It's just brilliant from Moffat, and it's just an example of one of the many lines doused throughout this phenomenal episode.
Blimey, look at this guy. Who does he think he is?
King of France.
Oh, he's trouble. What have you been up to?
Oh, this and that. Became the imaginary friend of a future French aristocrat. Picked a fight with a clockwork man. I went and met a horse.
What's a horse doing on a spaceship?
Mickey, what's pre-revolutionary France doing on a spaceship? Get a little perspective.
Of course, David Tennant is brilliant in this episode, showing both energy and grace. His obvious love for Madame de Pompadour is excellently depicted when he takes her death letter grimly. His obvious depression by her death is both truthful and poignant. Earlier in the episode, his convincing drunk acting meant to fool the clockwork droid worked well, and is always a scene I thoroughly enjoy. Tennant's first few episodes are and always will be gems, this one more than most, as it is a love story, and Doctor Who doesn't normally embrace love stories. As Tennant is the perfect boy next door type, it makes me wonder whether his endearing charms were the springboard for the plot. Also, another thing I must add is I really dig the dark blue shirt and the swirly tie combination here. It's probably one of my favourite 10 costume variants. Wow, I love it. With this second story, Moffat gets to expand on the view of the 10th Doctor being a madman with a box, and adds a good deal to the 10th Doctor's characterisation early on in his tenure here, cementing him as the ace heartthrob incarnation. Throughout the adventure, Tennant is portrayed as a dashing, debonair hero, and as a suave, daredevil adventurer, a brilliant and cultured man, if obliviously thick at times, who can easily impress the opposite sex, even without intending to. Like always, Tennant is able to easily command respect from everyone in the room, and give the impression that he's more in control of a bad situation than he actually is, while also being able to deftly leap between emotions in a moment's notice, becoming giddy with excitement about finding a new, grand mystery. In this case, he finds himself having an unprecedented whirlwind romance with Renette. Moffat slips in his idea that the Doctor is as good at comforting kids as he is because he is a lonely child himself, which we eventually get a glimpse of in Listen with the 12th Doctor. And for all his faults, Tennant demonstrates that he can be very selfless and self-sacrificial, standing himself in the past for Renette's sake. The core premise of The Girl in the Fireplace is a high-concept idea, casually and unwittingly journeying through someone's timeline, but what makes it a great episode is how Moffat explores the emotional consequences of it for everyone involved. Overall, the effect of Girl in the Fireplace is simply dazzling. It's so alive with inventiveness, so radiant in its confidence, and the execution, courtesy of director Euros Lyn, results in one of the most attractive-looking Doctor Who episodes ever. Should Doctor Who be attempting a love story? You might think not, but the success of this episode is a good indicator of why Davies and Moffat have continued with the same approach countless times since. Personally, I don't think it has been bettered since, and it's become a little old hat, especially with the companions. But the accomplishment of The Girl in the Fireplace does at least explain why they have both been chasing its success ever since. Tennant and Myles share sizzling chemistry, as usually the case with off-screen lovers, who work on screen together, but there isn't really a performance out of place here. And actually, this is one of Rose's high spots in Series 2, despite the fact that she's kept out of the action for most of the part. And this is actually one of Rose's high spots in Series 2, despite the fact that she's kept out of the action for most of the episode. It's certainly a treat for the senses. This episode whips up the imagination and your emotions into a giddy frenzy, and cement Moffat's name as one to watch for the future. I give this episode a 9.5 out of 10.